This is the test of the DJI LiDAR system. Three, two, one, focus. Pretty fun. Then if I'm gonna exit frame, I can just lock the focus and walk out of the frame. And come back in and click it again. Like, so when I'm back here, it's like, it says it's focused on me, but I feel like it's not. It's like on the tree. This is like very much in its range. It likes to be in like the 7-meter and beyond range. Which, like, for what I would be using it for, probably would be like this anyways. It wouldn't be like huge walks. I am curious how it is with longer lenses though. I just got hit with that pecan. I don't even use long lenses, but it's just fun to see how it works. And the fact that I'm using a cinema lens right now and getting autofocus is still pretty dang cool. So things you need to know about the DJI rangefinder are pretty simple. If you want to use this without the RS3 Pro, because this was designed originally to coincide with the RS3 Pro, and it does work really well with the RS3 Pro because the software in the RS3 Pro can do a lot more with the rangefinder, like active track. I think you can even have more tracking options within that system. What I'm doing here is actually have it rigged up to the Komodo using the new LiDAR hub. Now this hub is basically like a breakout box with all of the USB-C connections that you need to run the system. You're running it through the DJI transmission system into a control monitor. I think the reason they had to do this was because of a power issue. You can't just run regular USB-C power into these units to make it work. You have to have a larger supply of power to get this to work. I'm pretty sure that's what the hub is doing. Because once you use the control monitor, once you set everything up, you can basically turn everything off, the control monitor and the transmission system, and the LiDAR still will do its thing. Like, it still will save the lens data into the LiDAR system, and it can keep working, which is really nice. So everything's off except for the LiDAR, and it's still LiDARs. Camera's off. So that's kind of weird. I think if you wanted to use this system and you want to do it cheaper, I would actually recommend getting the Ronin RS3 Pro and setting it all up, because what you can do after that is figure out how to get, power to it with a better USB-C cable, and then you can run it independently on a camera without the Ronin. You just have to set it up on the Ronin first. Because the way I'm doing it, you don't have to set it up on the Ronin first, but you do need the control monitor in order to calibrate everything and get it working. That does change the cost a lot. That's annoying, that's unfortunate. Obviously, it would be better if you could somehow do this all from an app or something, and maybe there's some sort of limitation. There's a reason you can't do that, probably because there's not Wi-Fi or something built into the LiDAR, but that would be really handy if you could do that instead. A couple other things, the torque motor is very strong. So I'm using this on the Jonji T10 35mm. It's a cinema lens, it's not a very expensive cinema lens, but watch this. I'm in manual focus mode right now, so obviously I can, wow, that's fun. I can pull to myself like this. But if I switch to autofocus and I'm far away, it's going to rack as hard as possible to the autofocus point. There's there's a sensitivity to it. You can go from 1 to 5, but you can't change the torque setting exactly. So the torque on this motor is actually a lot, which I was surprised by, this little motor like that. So when I click it here, like this, boop, that's like really yanking on the lens. Just something to know if you're using maybe lower end lenses, it's gonna really twist those gears. And you don't have any way of changing that from what I understand. You kind of are limited to that motor that's built into it. Another thing that I think is problematic about it is definitely how you mount it. It comes with this kind of hot shoe mount situation, cold shoe mount, but I would prefer if I could mount it anywhere. Like on my rig right now, the only way to mount it on my specific setup, I had to remove my top handle to get it closer to the lens, because I found it works way better if it's closer to the lens. That way you don't have any height issues, because the LiDAR is up here reading, your lens is down here, those are not in the same spot. So therefore the focus is not gonna be perfect every time. Like if I get too close to the lens, it would see above me and not at me. I'm obviously coming up with my own solutions to do that. I do really wanna use this now, I think, on my feature film and create autofocus for any lens I want to use. I was really limiting myself on lenses because I wanted to use autofocus with the Komodo, but now I feel like I can use any lens I want, which is really exciting, but I need to come up with a nice mounting solution for it when I do that. I think the part that makes this even more interesting is that it's connecting with the control monitor, and the control monitor gives you a lot of functionality as a follow focus system, regardless of the rangefinder attached to it. But I think having it all together is really nice. The rangefinder also gives you that depth map that you can pull focus off yourself, which is just awesome. Like having that ability to kind of know, just like like on a major Hollywood set, they would have their own version of their rangefinder on top that is basically doing like a sonar system and telling the focus puller how far away a subject is, and then they're able just to rack themselves. This is like a way more advanced version of that, which is really interesting. I mean, like, am I in focus? Well, I can literally look at a depth map of my area and know if I'm in focus. That makes this even have more value. Just as this follow focus system alone, this has a lot of value. So I can see the monitor. I can see it on the waveform here. There's a LiDAR waveform. So you're gonna nail focus every time. If you're like at all concerned you're not there, well, just look at the waveform. Really handy. There's also a focus meter, which will show you like where you're at on feet, which is fun. Having a monitor, they're talking to each other, and you have a thumb wheel is really nice too for people that maybe don't have like perfect follow focus memory with their hand doing it on a regular unit. This is like a new way of doing it with the thumb. Something to get used to, but also something easier to pick up, I think. I like that you can go from autofocus to manual focus whenever you want. So if you're in a situation where autofocus is on, if you're on a Sony or something, you're gonna have to click a couple buttons, and when you shut it off, it's not gonna just like shut off instantaneous. Sometimes you can do it on the lens, obviously, but it's just a really handy feature to be like, oh, I need to take over. Like if you're in autofocus mode and something's going wrong, you just hit one button, take over whoever's on the monitor, and that's really nice too, that you can have that functionality. Focus and walk out of frame, and come back in and click it again. So I really have been using it on set already, just as a follow focus unit, and I've been really enjoying that side of it, because I really like the monitor system. I do wish there was more features in the monitor. It seems like it's just a little limited. Like I keep looking to get more out of it. But I think that's something that's like software, could be updated in the future. Right now, I feel like it's working really well. Now it's locked on my face. It's tracking my face. And then if I try to put something in front of that, it shouldn't really obstruct it. And I do want to say, like, this all works as advertised. Like pulling focus on me right now. That's what we're here for. We're here for this to work on a lens that's designed for cinema. This is a Cinema House lens I'm using right now, a Sirui Nightwalker T1.2. I'm at like a 2.8 right now, just because I thought that would look better. But you can see, it's pulling. I don't have the unit in my hand right now, so I don't know how well it's doing. But you've seen with the other test footage, it works well once you calibrate it correctly. I am for sure definitely considering using this on my feature film, and that's really what I wanted to test here today, is like, would it work in that environment? I don't know if I would trust it always on a professional set. Obviously, if I'm on a gimbal, this would be super handy if I don't have a camera assistant and I'm moving around in that way, but it's just so nice to have a camera assistant on set when pulling focus, when you have a client on monitor and you really don't want to risk missing the focus on a shot. Let's take a quick break and thank today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to present your work online. You can start with one of their best-in-class templates, or using Squarespace's next-generation web design system, Fluid Engine, you can customize every detail with the reimagined drag-and-drop technology for desktop or mobile. Or maybe you want to start an online store to sell your photography or other products. Squarespace has all the built-in functionality to get one of those up and running quickly, and I've actually been using Squarespace to run my online stores for almost a decade now. And of course, if you're like me, you're probably looking to build a portfolio, which Squarespace has a ton of features for that very thing. You can even create private galleries for client work using these tools. So if you're looking for a home for your work, well, you can just do that with Squarespace. Click the link in the description to get 10% off, and I want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. I do think when this is deciding to work correctly, it works phenomenally. Like when it gets the focus, it gets focus. So There's something to be said about that, and maybe, you know, kind of figuring out what its quirks are, what its limitations are, after using it for maybe months, and then really knowing what it's capable of doing. I'm really excited to use this on my feature film. I'm really excited for the opportunity to use whatever lenses I want, have like really good focus too, you know, like it's not like hunting like crazy. Like once it knows what the subject it wants to be on, it stays on that as long as it's calibrated right. And it's using a technology that just makes so much sense. Like it can actually read the depth. So it's going to do a good job when you have it working right. And that's really exciting for me, without using a camera that has autofocus that doesn't have the same power and capabilities as a Komodo. I really love the Komodo. I love the RAW capabilities. I like the image a lot. I'm very familiar with it. I'm not trying to shoot my feature on an FX3. Sorry, Gareth Edwards. That's just not something I'm interested in doing. I love the color fidelity of this camera, and I'm gonna use it. It's my camera. So this, for me, works out really well to solve one of those issues. Now, this is not a full tutorial. There's a couple of those already online if you want to know how to set it up and how to make it work. This is just kind of my perspective on what I think about the DJI rangefinder. But that's all I have for this video, I think. Until next time, guys, I'm Spencer Sakurai. See ya.